It was past midnight when she realized he was still behind her. 3 blocks now. Same pace, same distance. She tightened her grip on the pepper spray in her coat, praying it wasn't visible. No one else on the street, just the echo of boots behind her. She passed the shuttered laundromat, then the alley with the overflowing dumpster. That's when the man's steps quickened. So did hers. Then, a growl. Low, sharp, primal. From the darkness, a dog stepped out. Big, matted, limping slightly. His fur patchy, one eye cloudy, but his stance unshakable. The man paused. The growl deepened. A snarl now, a warning. And just like that, the man crossed the street and vanished into the night. She stood frozen. The dog stared at her, silent, still, like he'd been waiting for this. But to understand how it came to this, we need to go back to the beginning. Her name was Elena Ruiz, 35, single, and quietly unraveling. She worked the night shift at a 24-hour pharmacy in Eastbrook, a neighborhood slowly decaying under the weight of forgotten promises. Each night, she walked home alone, 15 minutes from the fluorescent safety of the pharmacy to her cramped second-floor apartment above a closed-down pawn shop. People called her invisible, not cruelly, just accurately. She spoke little, kept her hair in a tight bun, and wore the same oversized hoodie year-round. Not because she liked it, but because it made her feel small, covered. 2 years ago, she'd left a man who never hit her, not in the way that bruises showed, but who broke something deeper, the sense that she could ever be safe. She didn't talk about it, not to her boss, not to her neighbor, a retired vet who smoked on the stoop, but it lingered in how she crossed streets early, in how she avoided elevators if men were inside, in how she always kept keys between her fingers. 3 weeks before that night, she first saw the dog. He was curled against a cement planter outside the community church, gray-brown fur, ribs visible, breathing shallow. Most people walked past, some recoiled. One teen threw a crumpled soda can at him. Elena stopped. She said nothing, just looked at him. He looked back, one eye milky with age or trauma, the other sharp as glass. She placed a half sandwich near him. He didn't move. Next night, she did it again. And the next, she never touched him, never tried to pet him. He never wagged his tail, never barked, but he began sleeping closer to her route, by the liquor store, near the auto shop, under the mailbox, always watching, always silent. At work, her co-worker joked, "You feeding that zombie mutt again?" Elena only shrugged. She didn't know why she did it, only that she did. One night she saw a kid, maybe 9, sitting near the dog, feeding him fries, a bruise on the boy's cheek, dirty sleeves, alone. The dog let the boy lean against him. Elena said nothing. The boy said nothing. But something flickered in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Recognition, fear, kinship. In the weeks that followed, the city moved as usual. Loud mufflers, shouting matches, sirens at 2 a.m. Elena kept her head down, but she noticed the dog more often, now walking behind her sometimes. Not close, just enough to be seen. Once, a drunk man yelled something obscene from a car. The dog growled. Not barked, just growled. The car sped off. She never told anyone. No one would believe her anyway. Then came that night. The steps behind her. The rising panic. The dog. Now he stood in front of her like a guard carved from shadow. Not a pet, not a stray. Something older, something truer. And for the first time in years, Elena breathed. Not in fear, but in knowing she wasn't alone. Elena had 2 choices every night, the well-lit avenue full of broken glass and catcalls, or the quieter back route with fewer lights and fewer eyes. She always chose the second, not because it felt safer, but because it felt emptier. The side street wound behind shuttered storefronts and vacant lots, past a collapsing billboard that still advertised a family diner that closed 5 years ago. A streetlight flickered near the dumpster, casting jagged shadows across cracked pavement. No one walked this way unless they had to. Elena walked it every night. It was along this street, 1 week before the incident, that she saw the dog again. This time, closer, standing, not lying, halfway under a fire escape. His fur was wet from the drizzle, and a small cut was visible on his hind leg. He limped, but barely. Still, his posture was alert, watchful. Elena slowed. She said nothing, reached into her coat pocket, a half-pack of saltines. She knelt slightly and held them out. The dog didn't approach, just stared. "Okay," she whispered. "No pressure." She placed the crackers on the ground and moved away, careful not to turn her back. As she walked, she felt it again, that eerie sense of being watched. But this time, she didn't mind it. The next night, she brought boiled chicken wrapped in foil. It was something her mother used to make when Elena was sick, a memory she hadn't touched in years. She didn't know why she thought of it now, only that it felt right. When she reached the fire escape, the dog wasn't there. She waited. 10 seconds, 20. Then footsteps echoed behind her, fast and heavy. She turned quickly. A man in a hoodie crossed the alley's mouth and disappeared behind the dumpster. Her heart thumped, and then the dog appeared, from the other side, silent, focused. He stared into the alley where the man had gone, then looked at her. It wasn't affection in his eyes. It wasn't fear either. It was awareness, as if he saw everything. Elena backed away and took the long route home that night. She didn't sleep. At work the next day, her co-worker Jasmine noticed. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Elena forced a smile. "Didn't sleep. You on that back street again?" She hesitated. "Yeah." "You should stop. Seriously. That place gives me the creeps." Elena nodded, but didn't promise. She didn't know how to explain that the street felt like the only place in the city where someone, or something, noticed she was still there. 3 nights later, a woman on the news was attacked near the corner bodega, 2 blocks from where Elena had been that same night. She survived, but was hospitalized. The man hadn't been caught. Elena felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. She told herself it was coincidence, but part of her knew it could have been her. That night, she walked slower, heart pounding. Her eyes scanned every corner, every doorway. Then, movement behind her, not loud, just steady. She turned. Nothing. She reached for her keys, slipped one between her fingers. The dog appeared again, closer than usual. Not in front, not behind, beside, walking with her. She didn't speak, neither did he. But for the first time since she left that old life, Elena didn't feel like prey. She felt witnessed, not romanticized, not pitied, just seen. As they neared her building, he stopped, sat on the corner, watched her climb the steps. She turned at the top and whispered, "Thank you." He blinked once, then looked away. In her apartment, she stood by the window for almost an hour. He was still there, still sitting, still guarding. Eventually, he curled into himself and lay down on the sidewalk, not sleeping, just resting. Elena pressed her forehead to the glass and cried quietly. Not because she was afraid, but because for the first time in years, she wasn't. It was a broken mirror on the side of the alley, hung awkwardly, half covered in graffiti, probably once part of a store display. Elena had passed it every night without noticing, until now. Because now, it was how she saw him. The man. He wasn't standing in the open. He wasn't shouting or running or attacking. He was leaning, casually, just out of view from the main street, watching her. She only saw his shape in the mirror's warped reflection, hood up, hands in his pockets. She kept walking, fast, controlled, not letting her breathing betray the panic clawing up her throat. She didn't look back. That night, she didn't go home directly. She walked 3 extra blocks, cut through a diner parking lot, and doubled back before finally arriving at her stoop. The dog wasn't there. That made it worse. She checked the alley again from her window. Empty. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of those eyes behind her. Not curious, not random, predatory. The next morning she called the pharmacy and asked for a shift change. Jasmine answered. "Elena, you okay? I just need mornings for a bit." A pause. "You sure? You don't sound—" "I'm fine." Another pause. "All right, I'll tell Reggie." She hung up without another word. By the 3rd day, the manager still hadn't approved the change. She'd have to walk home again, at night, alone. That afternoon she went to the bodega, not for food, for batteries. She pulled her small flashlight from a drawer and tested it, flickering and dull. At the counter, the cashier looked her over. "You good?" he asked. She didn't answer. She just took the batteries and left. That evening she stopped halfway through the side street. Her flashlight buzzed in her hand. The mirror glinted in the dark, and there he was again. Same place, same angle. She moved fast, heart hammering. Her steps echoed louder than they should have. She passed the mirror. No reflection. Nothing. Was he even there? A rustle from a trash can made her spin. Nothing. A cat, maybe. or wind, or the dog stepped out from behind a van. Elena exhaled, her knees buckling slightly. "You scared me," she whispered, even as her voice cracked. The dog walked beside her again, closer now, shoulder almost brushing her leg. They crossed the final block together. The silence between them was heavy, not empty, meaningful, like he knew, like he saw him too. Later, she dreamed of the mirror. In the dream, the reflection showed not the man, but her, alone. And when she moved, the reflection didn't. It just stared. The next day, she went to the local precinct. She didn't know what to say. There was no proof, no photo, no name, no face, just fear, just instinct, just that mirror. She sat in the lobby for 15 minutes, then left. She wasn't ready. Instead, she walked to the church where she'd first seen the dog. There was a soup line outside. Volunteers, noise, kindness. She stood across the street and watched the dog lying under the stone bench. This time, she approached. Slowly. She knelt near him. "You know he's following me, don't you?" she asked. The dog lifted his head, blinked. "You've seen him. He didn't move, but he didn't look away." A volunteer noticed her. "Ma'am, you okay? Want a meal?" She shook her head. "No, I just came to see him." The volunteer frowned. "That stray?" Elena nodded. "He's been around for months. Never lets anyone touch him, but he'll show up when kids walk by, like he's counting them or something." Elena smiled faintly. "Someone called animal control once," the man added. "They couldn't catch him, just ran circles around the van, then disappeared. 2 days later he was back. He chooses where to be," Elena said. The volunteer nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think he does." That night, Elena walked the same route. The mirror was still there, still cracked, still catching bits of shadow, but she didn't see the man. She did hear the low growl behind her, though. The dog was back. This time, he stopped in front of the mirror and stared at it, long, unblinking. Then he lifted his leg and peed on the wall. Elena burst into a quiet laugh, short, involuntary, the kind that breaks tension like glass under a boot. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled. But it didn't last, because across the street, a figure stood under the busted streetlight, watching. She didn't tell anyone, not her coworker, not the landlord, not even the police. What would she say? "A man I've never met is watching me, and a dog I've never owned is the only one protecting me?" It sounded like the opening line of a bad thriller, but it wasn't fiction, because that night, for the first time, she saw him on her street, not at a distance, not in passing, on her street, near her building, facing her window. She noticed him from the second floor, peeking through a slit in her curtain. He stood beneath the busted street lamp with a bag in his hand and a phone pressed to his ear. But he wasn't talking. He was listening, still, silent, watching. He didn't look up, didn't make a move, but Elena's blood ran cold. He knew where she lived. She stepped away from the window, locked the deadbolt, then locked it again. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. But who would she call? What would she say? She peeked again. He was gone. No footsteps, no car, no sound, just gone. She didn't sleep. The light in her hallway stayed on all night. She sat curled on her couch with a baseball bat across her lap. And the dog, he didn't show. At dawn, Elena finally drifted into a light sleep. But a sound woke her. A scratch, then another. She blinked, sat up, gripped the bat. The sound came again. Not loud, just patient. Scrape, scrape, whine. She approached the door slowly, looked through the peephole. No one. Then she opened the door a crack, and there he was, the dog, sitting, looking up, silent now. On the welcome mat was a shoe, one sneaker, dirty, torn, men's size, not hers, not from her building. She stepped out, looked left, then right, empty street. The shoe had something inside. She grabbed a stick and nudged it out. A crumpled receipt, for beer, a lighter, and a prepaid burner phone. Time-stamped 2:11 a.m., 2 blocks from her apartment. Elena's breath caught. The dog looked up at her like he'd just delivered a message. She picked up the receipt with gloves and dropped it into a plastic bag. She didn't know why. Maybe part of her wanted to believe she wasn't crazy. Maybe part of her wanted to prove something, even if no one believed her. At work, she handed the bag to Jasmine. "You're giving me trash?" her coworker asked, confused. "Just hold on to it." "Elena, what's going on?" She looked at her. "Have you ever felt like something was about to happen, But no one would believe you until it did? Jasmine stared. You're scaring me. I'm scaring myself. That night, she waited again. No sign of the man. No more shoes, no more calls. But the dog was back. He sat across the street, facing her building, watching the sidewalk. He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept watch. She brought him water in an old Tupperware container. He didn't drink at first. She whispered, "You don't have to stay. You're not mine." The dog turned his head toward her, something between acknowledgement and refusal, and stayed. Over the next few days, she started noticing other things. A scratch on her mailbox that wasn't there before. An empty pack of gum tucked in her window ledge. The smell of cheap cologne in her stairwell. She told the landlord. He shrugged. "Tough area," he said. "Get a camera if you're worried." She did. A cheap one. Mounted it above her door. It only recorded 30 seconds at a time, but it made her feel seen. Then came the night the power went out. Not the block, just her unit. She was brushing her teeth when everything snapped off. The lights, the fridge, the hum of the hallway bulb. Darkness swallowed her like a fist. She reached for her phone, flashlight on, battery at 9%. She walked to the breaker. It wasn't tripped. She touched the panel. Cold, too cold. And then, footsteps on the stairs. Slow, measured, deliberate. She didn't breathe. The sound paused outside her door. No knock, just the quiet pressure of someone standing too close. Her hand gripped the bat. Then, a sound from outside. A growl. Then claws on pavement. Then a snarl so guttural it shook her bones. A thud. A yelp. Then silence. Elena waited 10 full minutes before opening her door. No one there. No note. No shoe. Just the dog. Sitting across the street. This time his paw bled. She stepped out. He didn't come closer. Just stared at her like he had one job and he wasn't done yet. She whispered, "Why are you doing this?" The wind blew gently. He didn't answer. He never did. But he stayed. The sun was barely up when she heard the screech of tires outside her window. A white van. No logo. Just dull panels and rusted corners. 2 men stepped out wearing gloves and holding long poles with loops at the end. Animal control. She ran down the stairs before they could get close. "Wait!" she shouted, barefoot on the pavement. "Don't touch him!" The dog stood beside the trash bins, body low, eyes calculating. He didn't run. He didn't growl. He just waited. One of the officers turned. "Ma'am, is it yours?" "He's not hurting anyone," Elena said. "Leave him." "Got a complaint. Said he was aggressive last night." Elena blinked. Her throat tightened. "From who?" The man shrugged. "Didn't say." She stepped between them and the dog. Her heart raced. "Ma'am, you can't interfere." "He saved me," she snapped. Both men paused. "Saved you?" the younger one asked. Elena swallowed. "From someone who followed me. This dog, he's not dangerous. He's bleeding," the older one pointed out. "I have gauze. I'll take care of it." The younger one looked uncertain. The older one rolled his eyes. "We don't need the hassle. Come on." And just like that, they left. Elena turned to the dog. "You could have run," she whispered. "Why didn't you?" He sat. She knelt slowly, inch by inch, and extended her hand. He didn't move. With delicate fingers, she touched the edge of his paw. The gash wasn't deep, but it was dirty. She could feel the heat radiating from it. "I need to clean this," she said. He didn't flinch. Upstairs, she laid out a towel and a small bowl of warm water. He didn't resist when she cleaned the cut, just stared at the door, always alert. "This is temporary," she murmured. "Just for now." He didn't seem to agree or disagree, but when she finished, he stood and walked to the rug by the window and lay down, facing the street, still watching. For the first time, he was inside her home. For the first time, she wasn't alone. She left a message with Jasmine. "Don't worry. He's safe. He's with me now." Jasmine replied an hour later. "Who?" Elena didn't answer. At noon, she received a knock. Her neighbor, the vet, cigarette hanging from his lips. Eyes narrowed. "You got a dog now?" Elena hesitated. "He's not mine. Just needed help." The man stared over her shoulder, spotting the silhouette by the window. "That mutt's been patrolling this street longer than I've lived here. Thought he was a ghost." He took a drag. "You feed him?" Elena nodded. "You lucky then." "Why?" The man dropped the cigarette and crushed it. "That dog chooses who he watches." That evening, Elena walked him down the same side street. Leashless, just side by side. He limped slightly but held his head high. They passed the mirror. It had been shattered completely now. Someone had thrown a brick through it. No reflection anymore, just shards. As they passed the alley, a door creaked. She turned. The man from before, the one with the hood, stepped halfway into view. Now she saw his face. It was forgettable, which somehow made it worse. He didn't speak. He just looked at her, then at the dog, then back at her. She froze, but the dog stepped forward, growled, loud, clear, not threatening, promising. The man stepped back, slammed the door. Elena's breath returned. That night, the dog slept inside. She made a bed from blankets and laid it near the heater. He didn't use it. He lay beside the front door, still guarding. She dreamed again. This time, not of the man, but of herself, walking the same street in childhood. A girl no one watched, no one protected. And in the dream, the dog was there, just behind her, always behind her. She woke to the sound of scratching. He was at the door, tail low. She opened it. He stepped out, stood on the stoop, and stared at the street, then looked up at her. Elena whispered, "Is he still here?" The dog didn't move, didn't bark, but somehow, she knew. The pharmacy closed at midnight, like always. Elena should have been home by 12:20, 12:30 at the latest, but the minutes passed, then an hour, then 2, and she didn't come home. The dog waited. He sat by the door, ears flicking at every distant footstep, every car engine, every echo of the night. But she didn't come. At 2:17 a.m., the hallway light above the stairwell flickered and went out. The dog stood, his head tilted slightly. Then he moved, not with panic, not with fear, but with purpose. Down the stairs, nose low, silent. He sniffed the doorframe, the edge of the mat, the air itself, and then he bolted. 3 blocks away, Elena's phone lay shattered beneath a mailbox. Screen cracked, battery exposed, like it had been stomped. Her pepper spray sat nearby, unused. The sidewalk was empty. No witnesses, no blood, no sound, just silence. At 3:09 a.m., the dog appeared outside the pharmacy. The clerk was closing up, keys in hand, half asleep. "Shoo," the man muttered. The dog didn't move. He stared through the glass door, nose almost pressed to it. Inside, the store was dark, empty. The clerk opened the door. "She's not here, Mutt. Go." Still the dog didn't move, didn't flinch. Finally, the man noticed the blood on the dog's paw. Not from the wound. New, fresh, still wet. "Damn," the man muttered. "What the hell happened to you?" He reached out, but the dog growled, not in warning, but in refusal. Then he turned and ran. By morning, the news had a headline: "Pharmacy worker missing after shift. Police suspect foul play." The article was short. No quotes, no theories. Just Elena's name, her face, her last known location, and the line, "No known witnesses." But there was a witness, and he was already searching. He checked every alley, sniffed every shadow, passed by the community church, the schoolyard, the soup kitchen where she once left him scraps. His limp slowed him down, but not for long. By sundown, he stopped in front of the same alley, the one with the shattered mirror. It reeked of gasoline and sweat, and something worse, fear. He barked, once, loud, sharp. A window opened from the 3rd floor of the tenement across the street. An old woman peeked out. "It's you again," she muttered. He barked again. "Looking for the girl?" A pause. She blinked. "He brought someone through here last night. Didn't see his face. Heard her crying, though." She looked down at the dog, almost apologetic. "You were too late." He sat, breathing heavy, then stood. He made his way to the last place he hadn't searched, a warehouse, boarded up, abandoned for years. The door was slightly ajar. He entered. Inside, crates, rusted pipes, darkness, the smell of old oil and mold, and her, tied to a chair, wrists raw, duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide with fear, and then disbelief, because it was him, the dog. He walked forward, slowly, no growl this time, no bark. He sat at her feet and looked at the shadow in the far corner. The man stepped out, the same man, no hoodie now, just a plain shirt and a knife in his hand. "I should have killed you that night," he muttered. "Stupid mutt." The dog didn't move. He didn't need to. Because, from the alley window behind them, sirens began to wail. It was the clerk from the pharmacy. He'd checked the camera feeds after seeing the dog's blood, saw Elena leave, saw the man follow, and he called. The man panicked, raised the knife, stepped forward. The dog didn't wait. It wasn't a clean fight. It wasn't cinematic. It was claws and teeth and fury and blood. The man screamed once before he hit the concrete. When the police burst in, they found the dog lying beside Elena, not moving. She was sobbing, duct tape gone, arms free, clutching his matted fur with both hands. "Please," she whispered, "don't die, please." He blinked once, then closed his eyes, not in pain, in rest. The next morning, headlines changed. Missing woman rescued from warehouse, leads police to serial stalker. They didn't mention the dog. They never do. Animal control picked him up while Elena was taken to the hospital. She begged them to let him ride with her. Policy wouldn't allow it, so they put him in the back of a van. No lights, no sirens, just the faint rustle of straw in a plastic crate. He didn't fight it, didn't whimper. He was too weak, too still, but his eyes never closed. At the hospital, Elena asked for him again, her voice hoarse from screaming, her wrists swollen and her legs trembling, but she kept repeating it like a child. "The dog! Where's the dog? Please, don't lose him." A nurse patted her arm. "We'll see what we can do." They never did. At the shelter, he was placed in a cage marked "Unclaimed Astray," caution, aggressive. They gave him a name on the chart, Unknown Male Est 7-10, URs, mixed breed. The woman at intake didn't look him in the eye. She had 20 other dogs to sort, and this one wouldn't even eat. But he didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just waited. 3 days passed. No one came. He refused food the first night, ate the second. Limp worsened. A vet cleaned his wound. But the real damage wasn't something anyone could see. He was quiet, too quiet. They almost marked him for behavioral review. That usually meant one thing. On the 4th day, Elena came limping through the door, hair pulled back, face pale, a bandage across her cheek. She carried a photo in one hand. "He's here," she said to the girl behind the counter. "Name?" the girl asked. Elena held up the photo. It was a blurry shot from her cracked phone, the dog sleeping by her window. "He doesn't have one," she said. The girl hesitated. "We might have—" "Let me see him," Elena said. They brought her to the back, cage 14B. He was lying down, nose between his paws. He didn't lift his head when the door opened, didn't stir, until he heard her voice. "Hey," she whispered, kneeling down beside the bars. "It's me." His ears twitched. Then his head rose, his eyes locked with hers, and for the first time in 4 days, the dog stood, painfully, slowly, but completely. He stepped to the gate, nose pressed to the metal. Elena didn't cry. She didn't have to. She just reached out and placed her fingers through the bars. "I found you," she said. "Now I'm not letting go." It took 2 more days of paperwork, background checks, vaccines, home inspection. She passed them all, and then he was hers. The shelter girl smiled awkwardly as she handed over the leash. "We're supposed to give you a collar and a name tag," she said. Elena nodded. "Okay." The girl paused. "Did you pick a name yet?" Elena looked down at him, already standing beside her, leash slack, watching the door like he was ready to go home. She thought for a long moment, then said softly, "Chance." The girl smiled. "Good name." Elena nodded. "It's not just his," she said. "It's mine too." They walked home together that evening. No more hiding, no more looking over her shoulder. At every block, she looked down to make sure he was still there. He always was, step by step, shadow by shadow. When they got to her building, the old vet on the stoop stood up. "Thought he was just a ghost," he muttered. "Turns out he's a guardian." Elena smiled. He still might be. That night, Chance lay by the front door again. But this time, not to guard, just to rest, to sleep, to belong. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon when Elena saw him again, the boy from weeks ago. He hadn't changed much, same oversized hoodie, same wary eyes. Only now, he was taller, a little leaner, older than she remembered. He stood across the street from the church steps, holding a crumpled fast food bag in one hand. Elena was locking up her gate after taking Chance out when their eyes met. Recognition passed silently between them. The boy glanced down at the dog. "Is that him?" he called. Elena nodded. "Yeah, it's him." He crossed the street slowly, cautiously. Chance sat beside her, calm, eyes alert but without tension. The boy stopped a few feet away. "He used to sit by the soup line," he said. "Let me lean on him once when I had nowhere to go." "I remember," Elena replied. "You gave him fries." The boy smiled faintly. He didn't even eat them, just stared at me like I mattered. Elena felt something stir in her chest, that quiet ache that lives in people who've gone too long unseen. "You did," she said. "You do." The boy's name was Mateo, 16, in and out of foster care, sometimes couch surfing, sometimes worse. He didn't ask for anything, didn't want pity. He just wanted to see the dog again. So Elena invited him in. Chance watched the boy carefully at first, that one cloudy eye fixed on him like an old soldier sizing up a familiar battlefield. Then, slowly, he stepped forward and laid his head against Mateo's leg. The boy didn't flinch. He just whispered, "You remember me?" Chance didn't respond. He never did, but his stillness was answer enough. They sat on the floor for almost an hour. No music, no TV, just the hum of the city beyond the window and the warmth of quiet company. Mateo eventually said, "People think I'm nothing." Elena looked at him. "I used to think that too," she said, "until the night I wasn't." He didn't ask what she meant, but he nodded. The next day, Mateo showed up again. Then again, the next. He brought books, helped Elena carry groceries, walked Chance down the block while she rested her ankle. He wasn't looking for a home, but something told her he hadn't had one in a while. One evening, she found him drawing on the edge of a paper bag, a simple pencil sketch of Chance, curled in front of the door. "You're good," she said. He shrugged. "It's just lines." "No," she said gently. "It's how you see him." By the end of the week, she bought him a sketch pad. He cried when she gave it to him. Not big sobs, just that quiet, stunned silence when someone gives you more than you believe you deserve. One night, they sat at the table with cups of tea. Mateo traced lines on paper. Elena wrapped her sweater tighter. "Do you think he knew?" he asked. "Knew what?" "That you were in danger that night." She looked at Chance, asleep by the heater now, tail twitching in some distant dream. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe not in the way people think, but he felt something. About me, about the street, about what I couldn't see." She paused. "Sometimes I think he felt what I couldn't say." Mateo nodded, then looked up. "Maybe he didn't save you." Elena tilted her head. "No? Maybe he just reminded you that you were worth saving." She didn't respond. She couldn't, because in that moment her throat closed and her eyes filled, not with sorrow, but something gentler. Recognition, healing. When the boy left that night, Chance walked him to the gate, then returned and sat by the door. As always, as if to say, "This place is guarded. These people are seen. No one walks alone anymore." Elena hadn't walked down that side street since the night of the attack. Even after everything, after the rescue, the arrest, the healing, she still avoided it. The street held too much of her fear, too much of before. But one Sunday morning, something changed. She woke early. No reason, just a pull, like her body remembered something her mind hadn't asked for. She made tea, fed Chance, then stood by the window, watching the early sun creep across the pavement. It was time. She didn't tell Mateo, didn't bring her phone, just a leash, a jacket, and her breath held somewhere in her chest. Chance walked beside her, as always. Same rhythm, same calm. But when they reached the alley, he stopped, not to block her, to let her lead. She stepped forward. The broken mirror was gone. Someone, maybe the city, maybe a neighbor, had removed the last of the shards. In its place was a blank metal panel bolted to the brick, clean, empty. But in the center of the concrete below, where the mirror's shadow used to fall, something else had appeared. A child's drawing, drawn in thick blue chalk, of a dog, lying down, one cloudy eye, a boy beside him, and a woman in a hoodie, all holding hands. Elena stared at it. A breeze picked up, warm, gentle. She sank slowly to her knees, not in grief, in gratitude. She remembered the first time she saw her own fear reflected in that mirror, twisted, silent, paralyzing. Now there was no reflection, only this memory drawn in chalk by someone who had also been saved. Maybe Mateo, maybe another kid, maybe someone who never spoke a word, but saw everything. She whispered to Chance, "You've made this street safe again." He didn't look at her. He watched the sidewalk, the rooftops, the corners, always watching, always ready. Later that day, she took a photo of the chalk drawing and printed it. It went on her fridge, between a doctor's appointment reminder and a crooked magnet from Coney Island. Every time she saw it, she smiled, because it wasn't about the night she almost died. It was about the morning she walked back and stood tall. Mateo saw it that evening. He didn't ask. He just looked at her, then at Chance, and nodded once. Elena began walking that route again. Not every night, but enough. Enough to reclaim it. Enough to be seen walking it without shrinking. She noticed things now, like how the lights flickered less, how the garbage was cleaned more often, how people looked each other in the eye more. It wasn't magic. It was the quiet effect of being noticed, protected, reclaimed. One afternoon, she found a small bowl by the alley wall. Inside was a handful of fries. No note, just a quiet offering. Chance sniffed them once, then laid down beside the bowl. Elena sat beside him. Neither touched it, but both understood. And just before sunset, a young voice called out from across the street, "Hey, dog!" It was a girl, maybe 6, holding her mom's hand. She waved. Chance raised his head and blinked. The mom smiled shyly at Elena. "We see him every day now," she said. "She says he's the protector pup." Elena laughed softly. "He is," the girl called again. "Hi, protector pup." This time, Chance wagged his tail once, then laid his head back down. The city never named him, but the block had, and so had she. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a stray. He was a witness, a guardian, a second chance. The city finally fixed the sidewalk in front of Elena's building. For months, the pavement had been a cracked, uneven mess, a hazard that no one bothered to report and no one seemed to care about. But one Thursday morning, the cones went up and the workers came in with tarps and shovels. Elena watched from her window, sipping tea. Chance sat beside her, chin resting on her foot. The work was loud and clumsy, but the end result was beautiful. A fresh square of wet cement that gleamed like morning light on a still pond. Elena smiled. Something in her stirred. That evening, the cones were still up, the sidewalk still soft, and Chance, curious, stepped forward. "Wait," Elena said, too late. His paw pressed gently into the fresh cement. Then another. She gasped, not in horror, but surprise. He paused, looked back, and Elena saw something rare, amusement in his one good eye. She laughed, for real, loud and full and human. The workers would have cleaned it up the next morning, but they didn't, because someone added something beside the paw prints. 2 words scratched gently into the corner of the cement. He stayed. No one saw who did it, but Elena knew. Time passed, not fast, not slow, just honestly. Mateo kept visiting, sometimes twice a week, sometimes not for a month. He'd grown taller, stronger. He was sketching people now, not just animals. He'd started volunteering at the shelter. One day, he left a drawing on her table without a word. It was of her and Chance, walking down the street together, side by side. No shadows behind them, just light. She framed it. It hangs by the door. Chance grew slower. His limp deepened. His naps grew longer. The vet said he was old, said they'd done all they could for his leg, his eye, his heart. But Elena already knew. He wasn't fading. He was finishing. One autumn morning, she found him lying under the table, still warm, still peaceful, no pain, no struggle. He was just gone, the way only the most faithful leave, quietly, while no one is looking. She sat with him for a long time, long enough for the sun to move, long enough to remember that first growl in the alley, the sound that turned her from prey into a person again. She buried him under the tree near the church where they first met. Mateo helped dig. He said nothing, just placed a small paper bag beside the blanket-wrapped body. Fries, still warm. A week later, the city tried to patch the sidewalk again. Residents protested. Kids from the block placed flowers near the paw print. A small sign appeared beside it, cardboard, laminated, "Guardian of Eastbrook." Someone drew him in chalk again, this time with wings. Elena didn't stop them. She didn't speak against the wings, but she knew the truth. He never needed them. Now, when she walks that sidewalk, people smile at her, not because they know her story, but because they know his. She still keeps his collar. It hangs beside her keys. Sometimes when the wind hits it just right, it clinks. a soft metal chime, like footsteps or memory, and every now and then, when a shadow seems too long, or a stare lasts too long, or her chest tightens in that old familiar way, she feels him, somewhere, behind her, not barking, not growling, just watching, as always. Some leave with noise. He left with proof, a paw print in cement, and a woman who finally walks with her head high. If this story touched something in you, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, real, raw, and quietly powerful. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever been protected by someone or something when no one else believed you were in danger? We'd love to hear your story.